I'll bring the August 24th Committee of the Whole meeting to order, just so the audience knows and the commissioners knows. These microphones are not working tonight, so we need to broadcast out to our audience to make sure that they can hear us. At this time, would the clerk please take attendance?
There are 9 present, 1 presiding, and 2 absent.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Palmer and Shaw are excused. Commissioner Henderson, would you lead us in the prayer and pledge?
Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which so greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll ask for any public comments on any items that are on tonight's agenda. Any item that's on tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next section, report of the chair. I'm not going to really say a whole bunch tonight, other than you guys are seeing some technology upgrades coming into this chamber, which it's been a long time since anything's been brought in here. It's my understanding that next week they're going to be working on this while we're off, and then the following week we'll have IT staff here to walk through and show us how the new system is going to work. So a lot of changes, and just kind of stay tuned for that. Bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentation. We'll move on to section 1, which is a presentation. Communication number 16-380. David Schultz, Director of Butte-Silver Public Works Department, requesting council of commissioners authorize time on the August 24, 2016 agenda for presentation regarding road and street improvements. Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you for the chance to speak with you. Mr. Chairman, any members of the audience who want to see the presentation should probably move to that side of the chamber because they won't be able to see very well from over here. We want to talk about road and street improvements. And the number one, when we have the surveys, when we talk to folks, at least when I do, and maybe when you do as well, roads are a major concern of the residents of our community. And this is for a lot of reasons. We're going to go through some of those reasons now. But one of them is we've got a road network that was designed to support 80,000 people. We got 25,000 people in the city proper trying to support it. So, you know, that gives us a challenge right there by itself. But another reason is shown on this next slide. When we compare Montana, other Montana cities and counties to Butte-Silver both, this is the result. Let me see if I can make a pointer here to highlight a few things. So, in Butte-Silver both, we've got 658 road and alley miles, and our budget is about $7,902 per road mile. So you can see the bold numbers up above where my laser pointer is right now are the combined numbers for the other cities and counties. Now, only us, Anaconda and Deer Lodge are combined cities and counties. So what we have done is we have taken and we have summarized the Missoula City and the Missoula County road budgets and their combined road miles, and we've come up with the equivalent numbers that other cities and counties have. So Missoula, that's where my laser is now, is right at about $11,800 per road mile. Helena and Lewis and Clark County are $11,400 per road mile when you combine them. Bozeman and Gallen County are $8,102. But something else to take a look at to really analyze this data are the city numbers. Our urban area used to be a city, now it's a combined city-county. But if you take a look at what they spend on their city streets, in Bozeman they spend around $11,300 per road mile. In Helena, it's right at $12,600. Missoula, a little over $14,000. Kalispell, Tacho, almost $19,000. And so it's not a lot of mystery why we have some difficulty. Not only do we have a small population base and a lot of roads, we don't have a lot of revenue to use to support the operation. The other column of interest is the employees. We have 23 and a half employees, and these larger numbers are the combined city-county numbers for the other cities and counties. So for example, Bozeman, Gallup County have 49 combined, Helena, Lewis, and Clark have 39, Missoula and Missoula County have 51, Kalispell County have 69, and we have 23. So just an idea of where the resources are and how resources are allocated in other cities and counties combined. So what we want to talk about tonight, this is just informational. There's no proposal to do anything that will come out of this presentation, but it's informational. We want to talk about what we could do so that 5 years from now, when we have a survey, roads and streets aren't the #1 concern of the community. And the way that we need to address that is we need to have some more resources, some more revenue. And so there's 5 major bullets on this page, and these are the 5 additional sources of revenue that we have discussed internally. And there may be others, but these are the ones that immediately come to mind. And one would be to have a 2-cent gas tax. The law allows that to happen. The council hasn't authorized, the public hasn't voted on this, but we could have a 2-cent gas tax in this town that would raise around $366,000. We'd have some expenses associated with that, but we would net around $366,000. This is kind of an attractive idea. We have a lot of traffic on our interstate, a lot of people buying gas in our community that aren't residents here, a lot of folks who come here for the festivals, and this is a way for those people to help share the cost of the road systems that they use. And so there's also a local option tax. We all, every year we buy a tag for our car, a license for our car. Right now, a 0.5% of what you pay for that tag comes back and is used by our road division. That could be 0.7%, but the law allows us to increase that by 0.2%. And if we were to do that, it would raise about $500,000 for the road department. Now, it requires a vote of the public, but the other wrinkle of this is, if we put this on the ballot and ask the public to adopt 0.7%, and if they turn it down, we also lose the 0.5%. So we think that we should pose some legislation in the legislature this next year to change the law such that you can vote on the increment of increase and not put at risk your entire tax. And then the third bullet there is there are 39 unassessed mills. You folks, and for a lot of good reasons, you don't assess the maximum that you could assess as far as mills go to the taxpayers of Butte-Silver Bowl. There's 39 mills that are left on the table, and this is no news to you. You folks know this. That equates at our mill value now, which is $58,517 per mill. Those 39 mills equate to a little over $2.2 million, almost $2.3 million. So maybe some of that could be assessed and put toward roads, another possibility. Something else is we have, and Mick Sanford's going to talk here in a second, and he'll describe the 4 maintenance districts that we have. And they comprise the urban area of Butte. There's various services we provide that Mick will detail. But we don't have the costing within those maintenance districts correct. We provide more service to the district than we receive in the fees that are charged to the people in those districts. If we were to amend how we allocate those costs and allocate them correctly, we would raise another $420,000 or so dollars. Then the last bullet on the page contemplates the creation of a rural maintenance district. We've got the 4 maintenance districts in the city, but the entire urban or the entire rural area of our county is not in any of these 4 maintenance districts, but we could make one. It would be like we did with Carragher and Fleecer. We'd have to poll those individuals. They would have to agree to be assessed. We'd have to go through that process. But if we could make a good case, and we could get more than 50% of the rural folks to support a rural maintenance district, and this proposal talks about maybe a fee of $100 per year, we could raise $300,000 from this rural area. And that's important, and Nick will talk about this, because we provide a lot more services than we have revenue in the rural areas, and Nick will talk about how those numbers work. So in summary, there's those 5 possibilities. And at the bottom is the total potential funding. Now, we don't sit here and dream that we're gonna get all of this. There's a lot of demands for revenue and for services in this county. And roads is at the table asking like a lot of the other departments are. But we do want to talk about what we could do if we had some additional funding. So let's talk about how do you go about knowing how much you should pave every year? Well, we've got about 250 miles of paved streets in our urban area. And we know, it's a common rule of thumb, that when you mill and overlay a street, you should get about a 20-year life out of that street. You gotta chip seal it occasionally, you gotta do some crack sealing, but you get about 20 years to actually mill and overlay that street again. So if we have 250 miles of streets and they last 20 years, we should be doing 12.5 miles each year. We do 5. We have enough revenue from our existing sources to do about 5 miles of streets a year. So we're falling behind every year, plus we have a large backlog of streets that need to be milled and paved. We've got a lot of deferred maintenance in our streets. So probably we should be doing in excess of 12.5 miles a year just to kind of get caught up. But we can't get there all at once. And as I said, we don't expect that all of these sources of revenue are going to come to pass or that you'll approve of all of these things. But for example, let's say that we could talk to the public, we could talk to the council, we could talk to the chief executive, and through some fashion, raise an additional $1.5 million in the near term for the road division. And this additional funding would have the following result. And so Nick is going to kind of go through what we could do with that additional $1.5 million.
Thanks, Dave. So Butte-Silver, our road crew is currently, like Dave said, on a good year, paying about 5 miles per year, an average width of 42 feet, average depth of 2 inches to mill and pave the road. You can see some figures up there of what it costs, which is about $350,000 per mile. It equates to about 13,000 tons of asphalt put down on the ground per year for our current budget. On a good year, depending on weather and certain factors, but that's a good year that we can do currently. With additional funds, something up to 1.5 million, if it's contracted out, we could do an additional 3.5 miles of resurfacing each year. If the contractor, based on costs previous that we've gotten, it would cost about $425,000 per mile to resurface the contractor. And I just want to show you a couple of maps what that would look like based on over 4 years, what we can do as a Butte-Silver road crew or what we can do with additional funding. So this first map right here is the next 4 years of kind of what we had planned out, 5 miles per year, 20 miles of streets in the next 4 years. You can see, kind of scattered around Butte there with no additional funding, just what Butte-Silver would do. This next map, it gets us a little further ahead, about 34 miles of streets in the next 4 years, and that's with $1.5 million additional funding. So I can go back and show that first one again compared to that next one. It's a little difference, it takes a definite chunk out of the work that Butte-Silver had to do alone. So adding on to that, we're just going to take a look at some maintenance districts and the rural maintenance district from there. Just as a reminder, Butte-Silver has 4 street maintenance districts in the urban area. They consist of flushing, sweeping, snow removal, and basic maintenance, which includes pothole patching and crack sealing and such. You can see up there, it's kind of tough to see where exactly those 4 are, but they're in the urban area of Butte-Silver. Currently, there are about 14,000 total parcels in those 4 districts that are assessed. District 1 and 4 together, in our current budget for the fiscal year 2016-2017, roughly we get about $411,000. What we actually spent last fiscal year was around $541,000 on all this maintenance work for District 1 and 4. District 2, you can see there's a difference of about $180,000, and in District 3, you can see there's a difference of about $60,000, and all the districts combined equates to about a difference of $370,000 roughly of what we actually provide in costs and what we actually get in our budget for the maintenance districts. And just to kind of elaborate on those existing maintenance districts a little bit, you can see our cost per parcel, per property. It goes by linear footage. So in this 2016 budget year, in 1 and 4, we assess 25 cents per linear foot. If it's a quarter lot, that equates to about $33. What our actual costs are, you can see up there, would be about 48 cents, and a typical corner lot would be 62 cents, or $62. So you can see 1 and 4 there, it increases by about double. 2, it increases by almost triple, and then 3 it increases quite a bit, from 47 cents up to $3.35 per linear foot. The actual typical cost in the Uptown Business District 3 on a corner lot would be about $436 per year of what Butte-Silver provides in services in that area. And to talk on the rural maintenance district, as David described, there's about 3,700 parcels, not including the existing maintenance districts, which is outside the urban Butte area. The rural district contributes about $84,000 through property taxes, but last year, Butte-Silver spent about $370,000, which equated about 3,500 man hours to provide services to that rural district out there, that we call the rural maintenance district. So a maintenance district to be added to the rural area would allow the cost incurred to be assessed to these parcels. And I'll turn it back over to David.
Okay, so what we're planning to do is to have a lot of discussion with you folks and with the chief executive and with our community. We'd like to begin a discussion regarding a 2-cent gas tax to try to make people aware what the benefits of this are and just exactly how that would work. Hopefully we could have a successful information campaign and put this thing out to a vote in a couple of years. Next time that we have an election, we can put this to a vote. We'd like to support amended legislation regarding the local option tax. So as I said, this is on the license for your car. We want to be able to vote, let the public vote on increasing it by 0.2% without putting at risk the 0.5% that we have now. And again, that couldn't go to a vote for a couple of years. But we want to try to do a public education campaign and talk to people, make people understand how this could help with our street problem. We want to begin building public support and support with the council for increasing the number of mills used for the road division. I think we have about 23 mills now that you folks budget for our use, and there's 39 left on the table, so maybe some of those could be allocated to help fix our roads. And Nick just described the last 2 bullets. We want to revise and update the fees that are assessed to these maintenance districts. The districts are designed so that we can capture the costs for the services provided. We're not capturing those costs the way that we calculate them and assess them now. So we want to assess those correctly. Then the last one is, we'd like to begin a process of sending out the ballots and educating the rural folks and trying to create a rural maintenance district and make them understand what the advantage is for them and see if we can't make that happen. So those are the things that we're hoping to do. We want to have a lot of discussion with you folks and with Matt as this goes forward. But we want to tackle this problem. We want to get to the point where roads and streets in Butte are not the top priority for repair. And this kind of gives us a roadmap and tells how we can make that happen. So I think that's the end of what we've got. So we'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Thank you, Dave. One question that I have is, very roughly, where does the rural area and the in-town boundaries meet?
This kind of shows it, and it's really, this is the north part of the city, this is the south part of the city. And whatever isn't shown on this map is not in one of the 4 maintenance districts and is part of the rural area. Pretty much the maintenance districts comprise the old city boundaries. And the purple is not in a maintenance district. All of this area going out toward Walmart, Warren, Waterline, that whole area is not in the maintenance district. So it's only where these colors are besides purple that is in a maintenance district.
Yeah, Commissioner Sorge?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, Dave, I get phone calls from people saying, God, you know, I pay $2,000 to $3,000 a year for taxes. How come the roads aren't getting paid? You know, so what's the actual assessment? Do you have an idea of a property, you know, what a property owner pays?
I should have had this up, let me get it really quick, I'll show you my tax bill. So that's kind of a typical tax bill. I gotta real quick, let's just go right there. So I live over on Coffee Street. So the bridge fund, I pay $572 twice a year for the bridge fund, which is basically road division funds. Don't miss one, Nick. I pay another road one here somewhere. There it is, right at the top of the page there now. I pay $24.57 twice a year. It's not on there. Hang on. This thing look right. There we go. Okay. So at the top is the bridge fund. So I pay $12 a year to the bridge fund. Then a bit further down, I pay $48.50 a year into the road fund. And then for the SID, the main district that I'm in, I pay $50 more. And I think that's it. So in my $2,040 tax bill, I wasn't keeping track, it's 50 plus 12 is 62, it's about $80. So, you know, $80 of $2,000 actually comes to the road division. And I'm on a corner, yeah, so mine might be a bit higher than some other folks. So Nick talked about the rural folks, you know, and they'll pay $2,000 and $3,000 tax bills. But there's 3,711 of them, and they don't have maintenance district costs like I have, so they're paying, you know, $25 a year. So 3,700 times that $25 a year gives us the 84,000 total that the rural area pays. And so all those services that are provided to them are just not being paid for by the people getting the services. So I hear a lot too, Commissioner Sorge, and that's the answer. I keep my tax statement handy so I can show people, you know, exactly where the money goes.
Thank you, Dave.
Commissioner Henderson?
Mr. Chairman, Dave, I've got a few questions here, okay? So, bear with me. When you're talking about your taxes, just, I'll step into that one real quick. When we talk about, you know, taxes that you paid for the road and so on and so forth, and road work and that, in our particular area, let's just take down by Blacktail Loop, because I have District 5 and I'm rural. Almost all mine's rural. Well, it is all rural, okay? So, we had Paulo do our road, Blacktail Loop. Now, that's not in front of your houses or nothing, that's the whole loop. $450,000. We paid for that ourselves over 20 years. Ourselves, not the city. We ran the SID or whatever it was. Okay? And we paid that ourselves. So that when you're saying about there's so much you do for them rural, but they're not doing nothing, paying their share or something, we put a whole new road out there. Okay, then we also have down each street paid for that individually. Okay, each house paid individually to the contractor to do them roads. City didn't do them, okay, or county. Okay, and I had some other questions for you. As an example, when you're talking about other cities and us, what we get here and what they get there. Do the other cities, how many cities have a hot plant? Of the big cities? Their own hot plant.
Flathead County has a hot plant, Commissioner Anderson.
There's only two, right?
This far right column shows. Yeah, Missoula, the city of Missoula has a recycler.
Right.
But, and Flathead County has a hot plant.
Right. There's only, I thought there was two, but there's only one.
I guess with us,
Okay, and then, how many have their own rotomill? We have a rotomill that was $1 million.
And I don't have an answer for that.
Because these other cities contract their stuff out. Am I correct?
I do not know if they contract it all out, but I suspect that they contract out more than we do.
A lot more than we do. And another thing, when you're talking about the rural and how much it costs out in the rural, and I'm not just protecting rural, maybe this whole process needs to be gone over again as far as maintenance district. Because the maintenance district was set up years ago for the flushing and the sweeping and snow removal, period. That's what it was really set up for at the beginning. And I talked to the people that did it back then, when they had it set up. And so, the flushing and sweeping, and the reason it was charged was because it was uptown and it was done daily. I mean, uptown, when it was vibrant and that, we had to get snow removal off these cities so we could have businesses and the cars could get here and people make it up to the mines and stuff like that. So, I think when you're, you know, it kind of sounds like the rural isn't paying their fair share, but they really are. And then a lot of these are highway roads, when you're talking about maintenance expenses that you get reimbursed for or switch back and forth for what you do for them, they do for you on some of this maintenance, right? With the highway department.
And, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Henderson, I believe that the 658 miles that we have on here are our road miles, does not include any of the urban routes or the state highways. So this is the revenue that we have to just take care of the stuff that's solely ours, Commissioner Henderson.
So do you, when you do snow removal Montana, Harrison Avenue, anything of that nature, that has no part of the highway department, DOT?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, yes, we have a maintenance agreement, and they do reimburse us
Right.
to some extent for our costs, and Nick knows these details, and he can talk to this better than I can.
Right.
But there are maintenance agreements with the MDOT for those urban routes and those highways that run through our city, yes.
Okay.
They don't offset, they don't provide much in the way of support for the department. We simply recover our costs, and actually the way that they're configured, I doubt that we recover our total costs. So they're not really a cash source for us.
And another thing, Mr. Kent,
You should be going to the chairman.
Come through me, Commissioner Henderson, follow-up question.
when you have bus routes, and that's a big factor for you in the rural area, is the bus routes. And that's what takes you all the way up into Roosevelt Drive every morning and Little Basin Creek, Beach Trail. It's because of bus routes. Am I correct?
Mr. Chairman, yes, sir, you are.
That's why they have to get done.
We sand, we plow, we make sure the buses can get up to their turnarounds, yes, sir.
Is there any refund from school districts funding at all?
I'm saying no, but there is not, no, sir, there is.
There's none? Okay.
Any other commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Perdue-Dolan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dave. This was interesting, expensive, but interesting, potentially. I have a question about, this comes up, I think, every year, and the amount of employees that we have, and of course, the union contracts and the hours that they work. I know Commissioner Fisher has mentioned this before, and it's tough when we get into the hours of the summer hours and then to the nice fall hours that they could potentially work, and then with the amount of work you do on the roads, we end up subcontracting with a Hollow or some other local road constructor instead because of the way the contracts are formed, and then having to subcontract. Have you found that to be the case with other cities that may have a similar amount of employees, or are they under the same constraints? Can we maybe amend that in the future? How do you see that working?
Mr.
Mr.
Schultz?
Chairman, Commissioner Freeland, there are no constraints in our union contract. We contracted with Hollow last year because you folks were able to give us $600,000 additional funding. Well, we have enough revenue, we have enough money from you folks to fund our crew and to fund our paving operation for the year. That's about it. When you gave us the additional $600,000 last year, we were able to contract with Hollow to do Cobbin and to do George Street. And so it is not a common thing for us to contract. And we have no constraints in our union contract that force us to contract out or somehow prevent our working a full season. So I don't know maybe who was suggesting that, but that's not the case.
Follow-up, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have another question, it really wasn't on the screen, but the incident where the oil bubbled up on the street, and is there a way to spend some more money to get a better gravel oil mix that when you go out on the interstate and you see a much smoother road consistency, and then you get into Butte-Silver and it's all mangled, okay, for lack of a better word that comes to mind quickly. Is it a formulation problem? I'm not a chemist, I'm not a gravel oil mix expert. You hopefully are. Can you tell me, is it a cost issue? And can we spend more money to buy a better grade to put down on Butte-Silver roads to make them last longer?
Dave?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Buell, we had the oil bleed on Granite Street here last year. And a couple of streets that had been chip sealed the year before, and I'll be quiet because Nick understands what happened there better than I, but what I will say is that we have a 3-bin mix for our hot plant. We make asphalt that is in conformance with all of the specs that any other contractor is able to produce. We have no lack of quality in the asphalt we produce. Well, what you describe is called gravel in your neighborhood, and we've had a lot of calls from the country club area because the street's kind of gravel, because they're so old that the oil is letting go of the oil matrix is letting go of the aggregate of the rock, and the rock is being able to be loose. And that's just a typical characteristic of a road that is an aged asphalt road. And its lack of funding, we probably should go mill and overlay or do some other treatment to your streets in your area, but it's a lack of funding. You know, it's a prioritization thing where there are just other streets that are falling apart far worse, and this raveling, though an irritant, isn't at the top of the list yet. But Nick can talk, and I'll be quiet, about bleeding.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Freeland, yeah, we did have an issue with some bleeding with a last year's spec on a chip seal, which Hollow contractor put down. We upgraded that spec, seeing what happened with the bleeding this last year, to put on a better oil this year that will hopefully not lead to bleeding when it gets super hot out. You can see on other parts of state routes as well, when it gets really hot out, there's bleeds a little bit too. Granite was such a highly traveled street that when it got really hot out, it kind of, with the tires, kind of came up with some of that oil that bled a little bit. You don't typically see that all the time, but if it gets really hot out, you see that every once in a while. And everyone has problems with it, every other city in the state. You know, just Granite Street is very busy and highly visible here. So.
Dave, in regards to the hot plant question and the changing of the contracts and hours and stuff, just so it's right in my head, if we start putting more man hours out there on different hours and we start contracting our roads out, to me, the cost is going to go up. And we still only have a certain number of dollars that we can contribute to that. So that probably won't fix that problem. Is that the right way to think?
Mr. Chairman, I think that I see what you're saying. By having, you know, the county, the Butte-Silver over many, many years has supplied the road department with hot plants and crushers and gravel pits, and we can go into the reason why all that occurred, and there's very good reasons for it. So we have a lot of tools and capability. And by virtue of having made those investments in the past, we're able to pave streets at the cost of about $348,000 a mile. And a similar contractor cost is about $423,000 a mile, and we've led bids recently, so we know what these costs are. So our own crews can pay less expensively than we can contract out. But our own crews can only do so much. And we're not proposing, we don't think it's probably very wise to increase our staff and increase our number of pavers and have a second paving crew. We're pretty content to have the one crew that is busy the entire year paving and doing the other activities that they do. And with the additional funding that we're hoping we can find, we would use that to hire contractors to do the rest.
Does anybody over there? Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Mr. Schultz, one of the issues I think that we have, along with the streets falling apart, is a lot of routine maintenance you're doing. You're filling a lot of potholes, and you're trying to keep up with the potholes. I've always said that the weather plays a really big impact with our street, with the breezy, thawing, hot. You know, we can have 20 degrees below zero and 60 degrees above zero the next day, and I think that has to wreak havoc with the cement and the asphalt on the streets. How does that impact just filling those potholes? What are you doing to keep up with just that, let alone paving? But what is your crews like filling those potholes? And how does that affect the paving process later on down the road?
Mr. Schultz?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Anderson, we have a separate group of people who do the pothole patching. All winter long, in the fall, we have to shut down our hot plants, all contractors do, because you just can't run a hot plant in cold weather. You folks bought us a second Durapatch machine here a couple of years ago. So we use the Durapatchers. They're an all-weather paving device. We use those to keep up with the potholes as best we can all through the winter. And then in spring breakup, when the ice comes off the street and a lot of potholes are present, we use both Durapatchers trying to get ahead then. But then as soon as we can make asphalt, which is usually sometime in the April-May timeframe, we end up hiring some temporary help. We have small patch trucks, and we take hot mix from the plant, and we address, we think, every pothole in the city. At least that's what we say, and we think we get close. We've got the website, and people report potholes, and we try to get those potholes within 24 hours. So to answer your question, the crew that does the routine maintenance, that does some crack sealing, that does the pothole patching, does not take away from the crew that's able to do the paving.
Commissioner Foley?
Thank you. Dave, I appreciate you coming and giving this information to us tonight. It's not new information for any commissioner that's been here for any length of time. This is stuff that's been talked about since day one that I've been here. It's gone through several chief executives. It's gone through several public works directors. There's been committees. There's been studies. There's been complaints. And there's been every avenue of discussion on this. This issue and everything the issue is suggesting tonight has been looked at in the past. So the question is, why hasn't something been done over the last 15, 20 years? And I shouldn't say that something hasn't been done, because we have made some small improvements, and I think we're getting there. But as you say, that the issue is so large that in the backlog, that we need to include more money into the system in order to address the problem. And so the reality of it is, it's going to take, obviously, more money, political will by this body, the chief executive, and it's going to be the political will and willingness of the taxpayers out there. Yes, it's one of the number one issues every year that comes in complaints and issues and so on. We just continue to do the best you guys are doing, and with the amount of money. The problem is that every time when we sort of narrow this down, we get sidetracked by all kinds of issues. We get people, the private contractors say they should be doing it, and we get the discussion between rural and urban, and we get, everybody up here as commissioners thinks that we're experts on roads, which we're not. But and so we never move forward, and we just keep sitting here, and the issue nuggets. We talked about in judiciary about kicking the can down the road, an issue kicking the can down the road. This issue has been kicked long enough. I mean, it's that simple. So what I would say, and none of you may agree with me, is that you take a look at those options at the very end, Rich, what you're looking at right here. And I know you guys have done your research and you've done that. Every one of those are going to be difficult to to pass the muster, but it doesn't stop us from trying. You know, I look in the last few years of what this local government has accomplished in terms of addressing our sewer issues, in terms of the new treatment plant. We still got a lot of infrastructure issues there with new water treatment plants. We made major strides, but this is one that we really need to focus and hone in on. And as I said, it needs the willingness of all this body here to work together, to find a compromise. Issues that Mr. Henderson's bringing up are maybe very valid, but we're not going to make everybody happy. There's got to be some compromise. Real people, whether you want to look at it any way you want, they're going to have to divvy up a little more. Look at those maintenance districts. I mean, whether there's a political will in this community to do a gas tax, I don't know, but you know, we have to move forward. I mean, it's an economic development issue. It's not an issue that, you know, you look at our roads, you're comparing it to other states, yes. So the numbers are here, it's been on our lap before, so, you know, please move forward, bring us, you know, some type of proposal. Let us get his input along the way, but let's not keep ignoring this issue. Let's address it one way or another. It's for the better of the community. So, thank you.
Commissioner Sorge?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Say, a quick question for you. Not, and I don't know if you can answer it or not. In other communities, do they require these large developers, you know, let's say if Home Depot were to move in, are they required to have pay for the streets when they're building? Or are they, is this something we can look at doing, or is this done in other communities that you know of?
Mr. Schultz?
Commissioner Sorge.
Cost.
I think the answer is yes. I think Bozeman has quite a suite of impact fees and assessments for developments such as a Walmart. And those are not things that we typically have had in our community.
Is it something, and I don't, you know, I'm not saying, but is it something we can review, I guess?
I think that would not be a bad idea.
Commissioner Purdue-Dolan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave, in your slide with regard to the maintenance districts, 1, 2, 3, the ones not included in, of course, the rural, you had the numbers included, and then it was the actual budget, and then the current budget and the actual costs. And there's quite a differentiation between what was budgeted and then the actual costs. The overages, was that approved before they were done, or did you just go out and do the work and then expect to be paid the difference? How does that work?
Well, what's with that?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the numbers, the assessments in the maintenance districts have been flat and constant. You know, this council, through a resolution, you set those every year. And they have not changed, I don't think, probably in decades. Been a long time. Yet we have, and we have to sweep, Commissioner Purdue-Dolan, or else we have a lot of particulates. We have a problem with congestion. We have to plow snow. We have to flush streets. And so the services have to be provided, even though the resolution that's passed doesn't pay for them. We just don't have the option to not perform the tasks. So it isn't the case that we simply don't budget correctly and we end up busting our budget. It's that the budget has been kept flat despite the level of service.
Follow-up question, one more?
One more. So then when you do that particular service in the rural areas, it is then decided it is an in-kind service because those folks are not essentially paying for it because a rural maintenance district hasn't been established per se, like it is 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, Mr. Chairman, they're very similar to the existing 4 maintenance systems. In general, we provide services, and the law with respect to these maintenance districts would allow us to capture the cost of those services. And what we're proposing is that we do that. And there is no maintenance district for the rural areas, so there is no mechanism for us to recapture those costs. But we're proposing that we make the case to those rural folks to help us create one. You know, there's nobody's fault here, and we're not blaming rural folks or city folks. We're just kind of highlighting why it is that we got potholes and streets we can't pave. And it's all of these reasons why. And so we'd like to take steps to fix that stuff.
Budget Director Gleason, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I did, thank you. Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Pudolan, I think you're asking some good questions there because it is confusing when you're looking at current budget to actual costs. Our maintenance districts are set up in individual funds in each one, and I think what Dave and Nick are trying to portray here is that that $369,000 has to come from somewhere, and right now it's coming outside of the maintenance districts and is coming within the road department budget itself. So those funds are not able to be used for capital because they're having to redirect their regular road budget funds outside of the maintenance districts and not use those funds. And so the 369, if the maintenance districts were actually costed out, that 369 would be left back in the road department budget for additional capital. I just want to respond back to I'm one of Commissioner Henderson's rural people out there. I don't have my tax bill to show up here online. I pay about $3,200, $3,300 annually. Local taxes, just Butte-Silver road taxes, is around $1,500, $1,585 that what I pay. I pay less than $80 in road tax in a year. But every day when I drive to work, and I think that's a point we missed tonight in this presentation here, is that every day when I drive to work, I drive 9 miles one way and 9 miles another way on roads that have to be maintained. So I use that infrastructure in those roads. I'm not talking about the road that's right in front of my house being maintained in, like in the maintenance districts and graded every day or plowed or swept or whatever. I'm talking about the infrastructure that's in place that allows us to commute to other areas and other places. So I think that was one point that we need to bring up tonight, is that when we're assessing road, we're not necessarily assessing that fee for the road that's in front of your house. We're assessing for all the infrastructure that you use every day. You get one time when you get in your car and you drive. And today, there's many of us out in my area. There's 3 of us that live in my house right now, and all 3 of us drive uptown with different vehicles, so we are all using those roads. My one son drives to Tech, my husband and I take separate vehicles because we have different work schedules, and we both drive right up here. He drives to Northwestern, and I drive to the courthouse. So there's a lot of different roads that we're driving on.
Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate your input. I know we've been working on this for a lot of years. I totally agree with Mr. Foley that, it's going to take money to get this fixed. As you know, I'm willing to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And by doing so, I think that we got to make sure that we're getting the best value. And when you come down to saying that it's $348,000 per mile for a 40-foot 2-wide road, and it's $425 for a contractor or something in them numbers. I read a thing the other day, and I know when you're doing long stretches of road, you do a lot less than if you have to do sections. And I think I seen a thing the other day what the state pays, and I don't know if they're 42-foot wide, but they're close to like $260,000 per linear foot. So I think when we move into this, and we do put the money for it, I think that we've got to do a little bit of fine tuning on per mile and width of the road. If you're going lineal feet, you're 42 wide, like the state highway is 4 lanes, so they're doing $1 million a lineal foot, they're called. If they're 42-foot wide, I don't know. But I do think that some of these numbers are a little bit good numbers, but I think they're skewed a little bit in the area that we may be able to cut a lot of lineal foot at 348,000, 428,000, you know what I'm saying, per mile. When you're talking 20 miles per year, that adds up to, quite a bit of money. So I'm with you, I'm all with you, but I do think that we gotta fine tune our numbers a little bit. Maybe your people and the contractors get together and see if we can't get that per linear foot down a little closer to, 300,000, something in that neighborhood or below per linear foot. I think it would make that thing to a lot. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Jim.
Anybody else have any other questions? Commissioner McDonough.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We get a copy of the presentation on.
Yes, sir. It's Mr. Chairman, it's 20 megs in size, Commissioner McDonough, so I'll have to get it to you on a flash drive or something. I don't think I can email it, but I'll be happy, or I can just make a hard copy for you if that would be sufficient. Okay. Yes, sir, we can make sets for whoever would like something.
Hard copy.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you very much, Chairman. wanted to bring this up earlier and I forgot it, but, in regards to, you had it up here a minute ago, the different philosophies. The only thing that we can really do in council easily is with the unassessed mills of 39. So we could vote to increase that, not now, but next year. So I would encourage you highly, when you give this presentation again, a year from now, maybe not do it a year from now, but do it 8 months from now, right before the budgetary thing, and then everybody can see these numbers. And next year would be a prime example, because next year, there's not an election, so nobody has to worry about it, because hopefully people forget about raising their taxes in that off year. So if you do it next year, before the budget season, so in about 8 years, about 8 months, you have a lot more chance to get some of these things done, especially the unassessed 39 mills, because I think it's something that the community has said over and over and over again. I know the 4 years that Chief Executive Vincent's been here, that he's put out a proposal and a survey, what the community thinks the top priority is. Every year, right at the top of that list is roads. Every year, that budget stays the same. You know, it fluctuates a little bit, but it's for the most part the same. So if we get this beforehand and we can look at the survey and say, hey, you guys all say you want more roads, fixing the roads, we can do that. But I think it would be a good reminder in 8 months instead of 12 months. 12 months will be too late, so just my 2 cents. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schultz, Nick, for your presentation.
Thanks, Dave.
Moving on to section 2, communication number 16-151. Sheriff Ed Lester, Butte-Silver Law Enforcement Department, requesting council and commissioners authorize the chief executive to sign a contract with Community Counseling and Correctional Services, CCCS, to transport youth to detention center. Sheriff Lester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I think we're gonna have to hold this in advance again. Some of the suggestions of facilities that we were looking at adding to this contract have closed. And so now we've gotta look at some alternative facilities. I know the Riverside facility in Boulder closed, so we were looking to add that to this contract. State of Montana closed that facility, now it's an adult facility, so now our juveniles, if they need to be detained, if they like the time, we'll probably have to go to Idaho. So we gotta work on the specific facilities involved in the contract, so it's probably gonna take a couple more weeks at least.
So we'll continue to hold that in advance. Commissioner Henderson?
Mr. Chairman? Just a question, what's the problem with juvenile detention? It seems like nobody wants to touch it, don't they? I mean.
No, it's too expensive, and it's not really a very profitable thing to have right now. So I think Missoula is even considered closing their juvenile detention, so we'll either be left with Billings and Great Falls, and probably Martin Hall in Washington is our 3 options. So it's not a real profitable venture right now.
Commissioner Henderson, follow up.
Mr. Chairman, is that, because of, when you're talking about not profitable enough, I mean, is it because we don't have enough juvenile offenders to be put away for a while, or?
Well, we haven't.
That's what I mean, we have enough, don't we? I mean, why it's all court ordered.
The trouble with it is that you can't seem to build a facility where you can get some economy by being larger. So you have to have a pretty intensive staff number per inmate. And so they're expensive to run, and nobody seems to be able to build a big one. We had the big one out here, and the federal government just quit putting inmates in that facility. In fact, I think there's only 1 juvenile prison left in operation right now. And so we've got a bunch of satellites that are out there working, but you don't get that economy of size, because there's there's just not a facility that's big enough to get that, so. Missoula has one right now, Kalispell closed theirs, Missoula, I'm hearing, is considering closing theirs. Billings will probably stay open, so will Great Falls, and then we have the one out in Washington that's also an option if we need it.
All right. Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ed. This communication's been on here for a while. Do you think it would be wise to note this communication in file and bring a new communication forward? Because I know the last time, some time ago, there were some questions about the contract and the mileage and the facilities, and there's a copy of the contract attached to this communication, and I'm wondering if maybe you met with CCS, we could bring a new.
Well, I think in any event, we're gonna need an amended contract submitted, so I think you could probably place this on file. And then we could come up with another contract and another communication that'll get it off the calendar until we get something figured out.
Commissioner Fisher, do you have a?
At this time, I'd like to make a motion, Chairman, that we note and place on file communication 16-151.
Second.
There's been a motion made to place communication number 16-151, note to place on file. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Kudola?
Sheriff, I just have a quick question, sorry to make you come back up.
It's all right.
I was hoping to get it in before you walked back. I just remember a few weeks ago, Commissioner Shaw had mentioned that this was probably going to be a very expensive route to take for Butte-Silver Bow because of this situation that you mentioned, with juvenile detention and all of this. Can you guesstimate or estimate for us what you think the cost will be monthly, quarterly for Butte-Silver Bow looking down the road, in costs for transport for juvenile offenders?
Well, Chair, I can't, I don't have the ability to do that right now. I think we could look at some of the numbers of inmates that we held at Rio, and then let's see what it would cost to transport them based on this contract or one like it. And I think we could get an idea. But there was a couple of years ago, we had an anomaly basically because we had a group of six or seven male juveniles that were stealing cars. And when they were released, they'd steal some more cars. We ended up holding a whole bunch of them in Rio for a long time, and that's what cost us a ton of money that year. So we haven't seen that in recent years, over the last couple of years, so I don't think we can see that. But crime is pretty unpredictable. I don't know what it costs. We have not transported, I talked to Tom Bilton before I went on vacation a couple of weeks ago, we haven't transported anything since May, so that's a good sign. I don't know whether that's because our officers know that they're gonna have to come up with some other ideas and they're looking a little harder for options, but certainly we're gonna run into some kids that are dangerous and we're gonna have to incarcerate at some point. But I don't know what those numbers would be right now.
The motion on the floor is to note communication 16-151, place on file. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Section 3, communication number 16-327. Stacy Carlson, 5230 South Montpelier Road, Denair, California, requesting council of commissioners allow sale of property, the Easter Lode Quartz Mine, back to the heirs of Carlton Charles and Marion F. Rose. The land sales did meet today, and we're just waiting for their report, so we'll continue to hold this one in advance. We'll hear that in a time or two tonight. Section 4, communication number 16-365, Dennis and Caroline Jennison, 426 North Wyoming Street, Butte, Montana, requesting council of commissioners authorize the purchase of county-owned property under the Butte-Silver Bow Council policy on adjacent property. Again, the land sales committee met tonight, and we'll be waiting to hear their report. So we'll continue to hold that one in advance. Section 5, Tony and Sue Palmer, Elk Construction, Butte, Montana, requesting council of commissioners concur with the request to purchase property at 102 East 2nd Street. Again, the land sales committee did meet tonight, and we'll wait to hear their report. So we'll hold that one in advance. Section 6, communication number 16-375, Cameron J. Moylan, 208 South Washington Street, Butte, Montana, requesting council of commissioners concur with the request to purchase property at 102 East 2nd Street in a developer packet style. Again, the Land Sales Committee did meet tonight, and we will hold this in abeyance, waiting for their report back. Section 7, communication number 16-377, Chief Executive Matt Vincent requesting council of commissioners allow for ongoing discussion regarding efforts to relocate the city county shops as a result of the state of Montana's pending removal of inherent tailings beneath. Commissioner, Chief Executive Vincent, you have an update on this, or just continue to hold this in vain?
Yeah, I have nothing to add right now. I mean, obviously, I'll give another report on September 7th on the regular council, and then we are gonna have an additional public presentation and gather the input of the public and our Superfund Advisory Redevelopment Trust Authority on Tuesday, September 13th at 6 o'clock out at the Emergency Operation Center.
September 13th.
September 13th, I believe so. Was that a Tuesday? Yeah.
Okay, so we'll continue to hold that communication in advance. Section 8, communication number 16-380, David Schultz, Director, Butte-Silver Public Works Department, requesting council commissioners authorize time on the August 24th, 2016 agenda for presentation regarding road and street improvements. We did have this presentation tonight. Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to place communication number 16-380 on file.
Motion made and seconded to place communication number 16-380 on file. Is there anything on the question? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the public comment on any public matter not on tonight's agenda. If you have a comment, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Keep in mind that there is no dialogue between this body and you, so we cannot answer any questions.
Fire Van Rock, 2601 Grand Avenue. I'm gonna make an out of order comment, so there's no comment or question asked about crack seal on the road. And if you remember the report that we had 2 or 3 years ago, that was a large item. My comment this evening, I would like to quote Dorothy Bradley's statement at Joe Quillisi's memorial service. The joy of working with Joe to implement the vision of a new Montana Constitution. Wouldn't it be great if our commissioners could say and experience the joy of implementing the vision of clause 3.3E in our Butte-Silver Bowl charter? Thank you.
Any other public comments on any public matter that's not on tonight's agenda? If you would just come up, say your name and address for the record, sir.
My name is Wally, last name is Butt, B-U-T-T.
Okay.
I came here last year, I believe, and it's about, I live on 1223 West Granite, right across from the college where they put the new dorms. And we got the speed limit down to 15. They put a little white sign about this big on the top, and 2 blocks down, another white sign says 15, and they're ignoring it. I mean, these kids and people are flying down the street. I brought some family, friends, and you can hear some of their stories about it. His wife actually had to dive in the minivan where she wouldn't get hit one day. And I think it was Ms. Shaw was our commissioner, and she asked me, what else can we do? And I said, well, how about a speed bump? How about a sign that blinks? The corner is, I believe it's Western, I believe it is, and it's the same street that the walking track goes on. How about a stop sign there? Everything I'm just saying, I've said it back then, we need to do something because the kids they're flying, and not just the kids. I mean, our city bus, we called the city bus people and asked them, your drivers are going down the street like 40 plus miles an hour. And their response to me was, well, we'll try to slow down if it doesn't mess with our time. So I'm saying, what do you mean your time? Or our schedule? So you're worried about your schedule more than the safety of the public. And it's just a matter of time. Something bad's going to happen. I mean, we have kids, and one of the reasons I am here is my wife and I, we do daycare. We're licensed childcare. We're star providers, and we do, everything, the food program and the whole 9 yards. And some of these parents here came here just because of that too. And something needs to be done. I mean, and that's why I'm here. And thanks for listening to me again. And we've called, and not just me, but the families called the police, and since I moved here going on 4 years now, we bought the house, I've yet seen one traffic cop stop one person for a speeding ticket on Granite. They just don't do it. And we've called, and they're probably so sick of hearing my voice and my wife's voice and some of the other parents complaining that there's like, oh, they're calling again, and I'd rather call than hear pretty soon something happens, and one of the kids being loaded, or one of the kids happen to run out and they're going 30, 40, 45 miles an hour or plus, and they can't stop, and all of a sudden you see in the newspaper, oh man, what's the sign of another blinking red light or a stop sign, they could have prevented it. So that's why I'm here. If you want to hear some of the other parents and friends, they're here.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please just come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, I'm Janelle Montoya, and I live on West Port Street on Butte, Montana. My granddaughter goes to the daycare, and just 1 block south of Granite on Park, you have where the college students cross the walks over there, and they have, that is a place where they really respect the speed limit. But on 1 block north on Granite Street, the students are not being respectful of the fact that they have tried to give a 15 mile per hour speed limit on there, and they just take advantage of it. But like on Park Street, they're more respectful. So I think something does need to be done, because there is a walking trail also on that corner of, I can't remember the street now, Western and Granite. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Silvajo, 1200 West Steel Street. Thank you very much for your time and attention tonight. I'm a proud parent in Butte, Montana, and a professor at Montana Tech. I'm also well married. Her mom ago that my wife felt so uncomfortable, she dove back in her minivan to get away from traffic that scared the heck out of her. She's very nimble. She can speak for herself. The 5-year-old that goes to school here, and the 3-year-old that goes to school here, cannot. Recently, my 5-year-old reported she saw her youngest sister heading towards traffic and grabbed her hand. If we're relying on a 5-year-old's good judgment, we're out of place. I'm not here to offer further testimony. I'm here to offer a question with the hopes you'll give it sincere consideration and discussion. When it comes to the welfare of children, what aren't we willing to do? We know that there is a safety issue. We know the location. Please help. Thank you for your time and attention.
Any other comment? Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Carrie Bath, 2235 Fairway Avenue. So I am also work at Montana Tech, and my young daughter also goes to the daycare there. And my kind of suggestion is, I think things that Wally has already suggested would be helpful. However, by working with the students, I think student communication works a lot better. And what we find when they communicate is, I think that if we had some ticketing taking place just for 2 weeks, right? It becomes a speed trap. That word will spread among the students and they will think, oh gosh, I don't want to get a ticket today. So that would be my suggestion, although I think having a blinking light would be great, a stop sign, a speed bump. Those things all cost money to put into place and you have to go through policies, versus if we could have a police car that is just there for the first couple weeks during the beginning of the school year, like this week and next week. I think having a presence will actually cause the students to react a little bit differently. I know that the Director of Career Services has already complained to our Director of Health and Safety on campus about students flying and trying to take modes of action on campus to prevent the speeding that occurs on that road. But I think the additional work of the city could be helpful as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name is Leanne Butt, my address is 1223 West Granite, and I do run the daycare and care for all of these families' children. One of the things I did want to point out is my husband mentioned the city bus, but I also have the Head Start bus come there. And they're very considerate with the traffic. They actually wait to put down the stop signs because they see the cars flying. But I know that he also takes notes of the license plates number and turns those in. We're going to be having some new dorm buildings built just west of us. They're in the process now, and that's going to bring in a lot more traffic. And I really fear that, you know, the people that are going to be coming down that hill, and I do say coming down because the ones going up don't quite have the speed, you know, but the ones coming down the hill are just really flying, and the danger that's putting these children at risk, not just the children in my care, but the students that attend the college. You know, they cross the streets and they're walking, you know, they're not paying attention, they're teching and they're Pokemon searching and what have you, but something needs to be done. And I kind of agree with Carrie where she said that, you know, a couple of weeks of ticketing and the word of mouth, that will go a long way. But we also need to have perhaps a stop sign on Western and Granite, something that'll give them, you know, pause coming downhill as well as going up the hill. So I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a motion to adjourn. Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Have a good night.
Thank you.